Yeah, let's go, man. Good morning. Good morning, y'all. It is almost 7:30. I'm actually doing this one a little different today. We're doing this one, you know, a little bit before, you know what I'm saying, market opens, so y'all can kind of be locked in. But what's poppin', man? It's your boy, OK Bet, aka K Trade. Y'all know what's going on, man. So basically, we can go over what happened Friday. You know, Friday was crazy. We caught a nice little 900%. You know what I'm saying? A little 900, a little 200. Obviously, anyone who played puts on Friday is just devastated by the amount of money they left on the table. But, you know, it happens. It happens. Anytime we have one of these huge $20 days, you know, it's always just like, dang it. Like, if I'd have just held all day, bro. Like, yeah. Like, I hate these days. But, you know, they always lead to really good opportunities anyway. So, you know, as long as you didn't blow your account, you know, it is kind of funny that they had this huge dump as soon as they introduced the PDT rule. And I told people, I said, hey, be careful with this PDT stuff, you know? Like, you know, there's no way, there's always going to be something up their sleeve, you know? They're not just going to give y'all unlimited trades. And clearly, you know, they showed us why. So anyone who tried to keep trying to catch the bounce all day, you got absolutely rinsed. But like I said, if you just were calm, you stuck to the plan, then, you know, we did what he did, man. And it was actually pretty crazy because this thing really sold off all the way into the close. Like, and it's funny because I told members in the chat, I was like, bro, this thing might sell off all the way into the close. And it's crazy because 2 days before I was like, hey, look, whenever we have this huge dump, man, we got to catch the whole thing. It's always hard to catch the whole thing because it just keeps going and going and going and going. So it's like, it is what it is, man. You know, if you didn't catch it or if you didn't have, you know, the best time trying to trade this, then, you know, it's just part of the game. You know, I don't know how many times I done had a day trying to fight the trend and be like, oh, it has to go up, and it just never did. Or vice versa, you know, it's just popping and you're just like, bro, it has to come down. But, you know, we've all been there. So, you know, if that is you, you know, fairly new traders, if that is you, then, you know, it is what it is, man. You'll be all right. You know, shake it off, come back. As long as you still got breath in your body, hey, you straight, you know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and get into this. So, the only reason why I even sold my calls is because our main level was that below that 758 or 748 was just the two gaps. And not to mention, it was also the measured move of this range, right? So they gave us this little range. Chop, 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 chop. Mind you, this is the same range we had over here as well. Right? We broke above this range, popped up, roll back down. And usually when you have a range break down, it's usually the measured move is a one of whatever the extended move was. If it goes to the downside, that'll be that same measured move to the downside. And or vice versa. You know, if it had swung below and it broke back above, then that target would be, you know, 50%, and then the, you know, the one measured move. So because we got that, right, looks like we started to bottom there once the gap closed. I did try calls here, but like I said, you know, it was end of day. We were just messing around and, you know, they didn't really do nothing. But we ended up catching more on SPX to the downside. So, you know, still had a pretty decent day, but just nothing that compares to what, you know, you go look at Wall Street Bets and we'll see what people made. Man, I hate it because these days are crazy. The puts that I swung that I talked about on that Thursday, bro, those things went 900%, and then the other ones when I woke up they were in the money, so I'm like, I might as well just take that. You know, there's no worse feeling than waking up or like having a trade and then you wake up and then it's like, oh man, I just missed, you know, this whole thing, or like what reverses, you know. So I'm just like, I didn't want to take that chance, but those same contracts did like 6,000%, bro. I'm just devastated. But like I said, it is what it is, part of the game. So now, where do we go now, right? Where do we go now? Everybody's freaking out. Everybody's like, it's over. People still already talking about, I told you the crash was coming. All right, bro. Dude's been saying there's going to be a crash every single day for 9 weeks. We finally have one red candle like this. The bears are like, yeah, we told y'all. Like, come on, gang, relax. This is by no means turned into a bearish trend, right? Not at all. Maybe short term, like, you know, you look at the hourly, of course, 30-minute. Yeah, of course, we got a little downtrend going on. But if anything, you know, we just came back to major levels, right? Same levels. Where's my chart? I made a chart with you guys on here. I'm trying to find that exact one. I don't like switching up the charts too much because people who watch me for, you know, these specific charts are like, hold on, that's not the same chart you had. I mean, pretty much all the same anyway, but I had one with the channel in it. No, not this one. Maybe I deleted it. It doesn't matter anyway. But yeah, so we did end up closing all the gaps, right? So that doesn't matter. So our main levels to watch for right now, we're having a nice little gap up, is the breakdown retest area, right, where we are at 745. I do believe that we get an initial initial rejection, just because. Excuse me. Sorry, I've been a little under the weather, but I do think we have an initial reaction at the 745 or the 748 because remember, this is it's a really strong bearish move, right? So there are a lot of people who got trapped in here, you know what I'm saying? People got trapped. So even if they squeeze us out of this position, right? Let's say we do, we're still probably get some little pullback here, or maybe a little pullback at 748 first. But I still want to give it time. If anything, I still, I'm still, like I said, I'm gonna remain bullish until the trend breaks, right? Maybe this is just a retest of the bigger zone, right? It isn't like this doesn't happen, right? Even if you look at the smaller time frames, this happens a lot, right? You still have these moments where you break out, right? And then you break out, and then it just comes back down, right? So, we could just be setting up for, it just might be consolidating at a higher level. We still got to let these things kind of play out a little bit before we start freaking out and being like, oh, it's over, right? And I do understand people already talking about the head and shoulder that possibly might play out here. But remember, you can't call a head and shoulder until it breaks that neckline. Remember, it has to break the neckline. So, there's a lot of things that I'm seeing online and people are already fear-mongering. Look, relax, chill. This isn't our first $20 sell day. Won't be the last. So, and look, we're already kind of erasing a good chunk of the move just overnight. Let me see. Yeah. Nice little 382. Well, let's see if you wanted to start from the actual day. If you want to start at the actual day, we already have 50% retracement. So yeah, as far as the day, where do we open up at right here? Oh, even better. Yeah. But you see how we're coming back into that golden pocket, kind of that same range in between here and here. So definitely going to be looking for some sort of, reaction, rejection, unless of course, we get a Trump pump. That'd be crazy, right? The 21 SMA, move down a little bit. The 5 move down a little bit. So if we do reject the 20, watch for a little rollover. Still watch the main levels, 741 daily level, 748 daily level, 731 daily level. So they still can roll us back down, and we could form a double bottom off this, right? Maybe go up like that. So, you got to be careful because just like yesterday, we didn't really know where the bottom was because it kept going. Right, kept going. You still got to have that same patience, and just kind of let it play out first. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you got a little rattled on Friday. As a lot of people's first times trading those, really crazy sell days. And I understand, it does get a little tricky sometimes, but it's all part of the game. NVDA, we did have that fake breakout last week, but I mean it still seems to be holding this downward channel pretty good. So if that's the case. Really the same thing in SPY. You gotta wait this one out a little bit, and obviously you can trade it, day trade, whatever. But I'm saying before we get the bigger picture on whether this is an actual sell off, if this is a true, this is one of those ones where okay, you can say, hey, this as of now, this is a double top because we did break the neckline, and we're now in retest mode. So if we cannot get back above, right, it probably will end up coming lower for NVIDIA. But if it does, right, we're gonna break them back out, reclaiming 215 to 218. That's the main level we gotta rewatch, right? And then 225, of course, target all-time high up there. We still got that gap to close at 236, and we never got to. So remember, I always tell y'all have to have a plan for both sides, right? Even on SPY, right? We talked about this. Even though Thursday in the last video we talked about how, hey, it does look good, right, to get this break back out to all-time highs. It looks amazing. But we said, hey, the only thing we didn't like was that we were still underneath the 5. You go look, on most of these tickers were underneath their 5-day moving average, right? So a pullback is natural. Pullback is normal. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. I promise you it's not. But, if you go back and look at, let's go back and look at a bunch of other these $20 sell days and kind of see the reaction of what happened. You know what I'm saying? Look, crazy sell day, gap up, small day, double bottom, kind of gathers for a while, and then we end up squeezing to new all-time highs, right? This one kind of was easy. It was 3 days, and that thing went right back to highs. Let me see. This one over here, a little gap down. It's like a little 2-day thing. Just gap down, pretty bearish. Next day, fully recovered. Just starts recovering back. This is all tariff stuff. What was this, December? Yeah, I remember this one, December. This is the last one I remember. We gapped up, still closed below. You know what I'm saying? We played around with these lows for a little bit, and then, ended up kind of going back up. But, you see what I'm saying? It's not the end of the world. It's never just one red candle leads to doom and gloom, you feel what I'm saying? So y'all gotta relax, and, just zoom out, man. Remember, when in doubt, zoom out. Want to know what's next? Look left, right? So basically, yeah, that's all I'm saying, man. Just kind of, relax a little bit. Y'all be easy. Remember what I always say, it's gonna be as simple as you make it. If you make it complicated, then it will be complicated, right? And look, and you see how if you did zoom out and wait for these, higher time frames to close. I mean, we only got really one green little candle for real. This one, this I don't really count this one for real because this one was already below. We were already cooked at this point. But this is the only one that kind of gave us hope and kind of, had us like, okay, well, 740 at the bottom, right? And this is where I did try to start some 1DTs, but they ended up getting stopped out, so it didn't really go nowhere. But yeah, we have to get back above that before I'm like, all right, hey, let's try it because excuse me, sorry, I'm a little under the weather. But remember how I talked about, there could be a high, lower high. They could still set a lower high, unless we come out and take this high this week or next week, whatever the case, then you still got to be hesitant about how far they want to pull this back, because they can just, and we talked about this, they can lower high, lower low, lower high. You know what I'm saying? They could really give us a nice trend just so we can, maybe come make a bigger flag, you know what I'm saying, and bottom out, you know what I'm saying, do whatever, however the trend wants to continue, or if it does want to reverse, we'll play that too. What else? Oracle. Somebody asked me about Oracle. Is Oracle the one that has earnings this week? I forget, but I'll be forgetting. But yeah, I mean, I'm playing Oracle. You know what I'm saying? I'm not missing the. Because remember, I told y'all like I'll play things if they're not at all-time highs. It's just something about when it's at all-time highs is terrifying. Like I can't play candles that are doing this. You know what I'm saying? I can't do that. I just can't do it. I don't care how good it looks. That risk reward is just not worth it to me because you get stuff like this, right? Everybody's trying to chase. Everybody's like, oh, I'm getting on the dip. I'm getting on the dip. I'm getting on the dip. You know what I'm saying? Then you erase the whole move, right? We've seen this on Microsoft earnings. We've seen this on a bunch of things, where it's just so all the way up, and then that just ends up erasing all the whole move. So I will be playing this one just off technicals alone, right? Start at the bottom on the breakout level, right? We're already in this little flag pattern, just consolidating still. We didn't really have a bad of a fake out like a lot of tickers had that bad fake out, but this one's pretty much chilling. So I will be keeping an eye on this on Oracle. Let me see. Trump was talking about the AI stuff. Y'all seen that, right? Y'all seen that? He was like, we're gonna have a meeting. We're gonna have a meeting on the AI. We're gonna have a contract, a government contract with AI. Bro just be yapping sometimes, but every now and then, you gotta really listen in, cause really might be giving us game, Even though he be doing a lot of wild stuff, right? I don't condone, but as far as just our job and what it is, to trade and stuff, you gotta still be ear close to the streets. But hey, if he telling the truth, last time I remember the last time he said that, the time that I didn't believe him was the day that we had that crazy. We always remember these crazy dumps, bro, but we never remember these. Hold on. Y'all remember back during the tariff stuff? Back during the tariffs, was it April? Yeah. Man, sorry. Right here. Yeah, I was so hurt. I thought we were going lower, man. This is my first Trump, my first Trump time. So, man, I don't even, looking back, of course, I'm like, oh, how did I not see this? But it happened so fast. Bro. We thought we were going down, we were waiting, and then $20. I was like, no. Then mind you, the day before I had swung SPX calls, I was waiting for a little double bottom to gap up, closed my SPX calls, and then watched them just get absolutely paid. I was so hurt. But let's check the VIX real quick while we're waiting. VIX still at these lower levels, right? We did have that crazy pop on Friday, but as you can see, like I said, everything's kind of having a temporary relief move, or we don't really know if it's just if it's actually going to follow through. Same thing with SPY, right? Temporary relief. Now, we don't know if this is going to follow through and everything's just going to reset instantly, or if we do still get bought up off this 18 support, because the VIX is still pretty high. You know what I'm saying? This thing can still spike some more, right? Dollar was already pumping pretty crazy on Friday. Yep. When the dollar starts to go up, that means people are starting to move, their money. They're like, whoa, maybe I don't want to hold these stocks no more. Maybe I want to, hold cash. So this is kind of breaking out as well, right? We talked about this. Boom, boom. So if this does want to push, then like I said, then be prepared to get tricked again. You know what I'm saying? Don't just blindly, let's just go long. Like I said, if it looks good, right? Even now, in the next hour, if we retest 741, we hold, right? And we start to break back up, clear 745, then we can kind of play it. But yeah, if this just starts running at open, I still would look for a rejection first at that 748. So, yeah, what else? Y'all know I don't like Tesla, but I only go over it because a lot of y'all still be trading that shit. I'd be like, I hate this. I hate Tesla. But, Tesla is one of those ones that will give us some moves that doesn't necessarily make sense. Tesla mess around and still go to 450 this week. You know what I'm saying? Tesla's a little weird. And, a lot of these moves, when it comes to Tesla, they're fake out. This is the fake out. No, this was the fake out. No, this was the true fake out. You know what I'm saying? So this could be, one of those ones, right? You had a little wedge, you call them a pennant, a flag, whatever you want to call them. But a lot of these times, if the move isn't continued, right, like if this doesn't continue, then a lot of times the first move is a fake out. And we know Tesla's very, very, very good at fake outs. So if this does, clear back up 430, then it might just, trickle out both sides. But if it does want to keep going lower, right, under really 400, right, under really 400, you got that Friday's low come down to 375, 365 kind of certain areas. But yeah, I'm not really too worried about Tesla. I really only traded on Friday anyway. Meta is right back to the same levels. I don't know what Meta got going on. Yeah, Meta's kind of weird. It's just kind of chopping, right? But we do know what consolidation leads to expansion. So this will, one day we'll get a move, right? We'll see. Let's zoom out a little more. Remember, when in doubt, zoom out. Let's see. Yeah, it's really not bad, to be honest. You look at the weekly. Like, yes, it's, chopping. But like I said, we know this consolidation leads to expansion. So whether this does recover, right? If it does recover and we pop right back out, we have to clear 680, right? 700 to even think about, going back up to all-time highs. But as of right now, we are in a weekly downtrend, right? So if it wants to continue, maybe come down, or even if it wants to set a higher low this week, because we have this low, and then we continue to, kind of bottom over here for a few weeks. This was actually, a good. To me, I was like, okay, well, we consolidate and we probably push back up, but we just didn't. Like I said, a lot of things had to fake out last week, but yeah, we didn't necessarily get a chance to play Meta at all, so not really missing out too much. But if we do want to come set a higher low, really anywhere between 520 and I'd say about 580. You don't really want to go too low, right? But if it does kind of set a higher low this week, maybe we possibly start to finally get that push up. But I know Zuckerberg was like, oh, we're gonna stop focusing on AI and focus on the metaverse. But it's chopped. I don't know why. I don't know what Cuz was thinking. But let me see. Oh, it's that big overall, that trend line we were talking about that one time. So yeah, this could just be all a breakdown, retest. The breakdown, retest, and if it wants to roll lower. Sorry, bro. I'm not feeling good today. I'm trying to think. Man, I wish this was live. It's just so much easier for me to just look y'all in the face and be like, give me some tickers, But yeah, bro, y'all gotta start commenting stuff like tickers, what y'all want me to look at, like when I be asking about ideas and stuff, because we talked about the small account challenge. We talked about doing that on was that last Tuesday or something? Early last week. So that's what y'all want. If y'all want to do this kind of stuff, you gotta, I'll just be the person in the back of the class. Y'all got questions, but y'all too scared to ask them. If you have questions or certain things you don't understand, like, hey, can you go over woo, you know what I'm saying? Just drop it in the comments, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'm probably gonna, like, it's Monday. I ain't really, like I said, I'm not really feeling the best. So I'm probably gonna actually lay back down after I post this video. Lay on the couch for a little bit, kind of get myself together. I had a fun weekend, man, but I'm just getting old, bro. I'm just getting old, so man. That's pretty much it. I'm just getting old. I'm trying to think. There's got to be something else I'm missing, bro. Hold on. Let me see. No. Yeah, I don't know, man. That might be it. It might just be it. You might just have to go over all this stuff in live. So, like I said, man, SPY probably gonna be our main watch for today, right? Watch these major levels: 741, 748, right, and then 745 mid range. So, right? We break down, retest, we might come back and close that gap, right? We might even go a little lower, extend it lower, right? And then maybe get a little pop off that, take some time, and then go, right? So remember, you got to have a plan for both sides. Yes, we had this nice gap up, right? But that's what we always do. We've all look at all the crazy sell days. We've always had some sort of relief bounce, right? But a lot of times it does tend to, like I said, roll back over, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, I'll still be in chat today, and yeah, man, y'all know I'm, analyst and Cobb's cap and stuff like that. So if y'all do want to, find out where I'm at, where I post on my trades, we're in here, calling out heat, calling out bangers, me and the guys, what's going on. But yeah, we had a pretty good run. Everybody has losses here and there, but for the most part, we've been pretty good. Just being patient, waiting, buying the dip, whenever it comes, right? If that's what the plan calls for, right? We buying the dips. If the plan calls for selling the rips, we doing that too. So yeah, man, y'all wanna find me? That's where I am. But other than that, man, I'll see y'all. Peace. Oh, keep it simple. Keep God first. Peace.